400 hours, Western Pacific Ocean forward operating area. The fleet cuts through the black water in near-total darkness. Heavy storm clouds block the moon and stars, merging the sea and sky into a void. On the bridge of the lead destroyer, the only light comes from the soft green glow of radar screens and tactical displays. The ship sways gently with the deep rolling swell of the ocean. Crew members stand at their stations, monitoring the silent digital pulse of the environment. The low hum of air conditioning and the rhythmic thrum of the engines provide a steady, hypnotic background noise. Suddenly, the green glow flickers. Every screen on the bridge turns static white, then plunges into absolute darkness. The tactical network dies instantly. A confusing, heavy silence fills the room. An officer taps his headset frantically, checking the connection. No signal. The captain steps forward, his face obscured by shadow. A sailor on the port bridge wing screams and points to the north. The horizon ignites. A streak of fire tears the night sky apart, moving faster than sound. Then another. Then 20 more. The air raid siren tries to wind up but fails without the main power grid. The first hypersonic missile slams into the destroyer's superstructure. Titanium and steel vaporize in a blinding white flash. The kinetic energy of the impact shears the main radar mast cleanly off the hull. The shockwave shatters the bridge windows inward, spraying the crew with a deadly mist of razor-sharp glass. Bodies hurl across the deck like ragdolls, slamming into bulkheads and control consoles. The ship lists violently to starboard, throwing equipment and personnel into a pile. Fire engulfs the forward deck. The heat is instant and blistering. Below the waterline, the hull buckles under the pressure of the explosion. Seawater roars into the sleeping quarters, smashing through watertight doors. Sailors scramble in pitch blackness, choking on thick, acrid smoke as the water level rises rapidly. To the left of the flagship, a frigate takes a direct hit amidships. The missile tears through the armor belt and detonates the ammunition magazine. The vessel snaps in half with a deafening roar. The bow rises vertically out of the water before crashing back down, creating a massive wave. Burning fuel spills across the surface of the ocean, turning the water into a lake of fire. Debris rains down for miles, hissing as hot metal meets cold sea. The captain pulls himself off the floor of the destroyer's bridge, blood dripping freely from a gash on his forehead. He grabs the backup sound-powered phone. He screams for manual override. Junior officers stumble through the smoke, switching weapon systems to local battery power. The main gun rotates slowly, searching for a target in the chaos. Smoke pours from the crippled fleet. The ocean is lit by the orange glow of burning ships. The surprise is absolute. The electronic eyes of the fleet remain blind. But the enemy is visible now by the light of the destruction they wrought. 0530 hours, flight deck of the supercarrier. The sun begins to bleed over the eastern horizon, painting the heavy clouds in bruised purples and dark reds. The air smells intensely of unburnt JP5 jet fuel and hot asphalt. Yellow-shirted handlers sprint across the rough non-skid surface, waving lighted wands frantically. Steam hisses and rises from the catapult tracks, swirling in the wind. The deafening roar of jet engines spooling up drowns out the distant thumping explosions from the destroyer screen to the north. Pilots sit strapped into their cockpits, oxygen masks tight against their faces, checking instrument panels that glow with critical data. The tower loudspeaker crackles over the deck noise. Vampire inbound, air contact massive, bandits bearing 360. On the horizon, black specks multiply like swarming insects against the morning light. They are not missiles this time. They are enemy fighter jets. The steam catapult fires. The lead American fighter jet screams down the deck and hurls itself into the air. The force slams the pilot back into his seat. Another jet follows seconds later. They bank hard left, lighting afterburners. Twin blue flames shoot from the exhaust nozzles. The jets climb vertically, tearing through the cloud layer to meet the descending enemy squadron. The two formations collide at combined speeds of Mach 2. The sky becomes a blur of gray metal and white smoke trails. A hostile fighter locks onto the lead American jet. The American pilot brakes hard right, pulling 9 Gs. The blood drains from his head to his feet. He releases flares. Bright magnesium fireballs flower behind him, distracting the heat-seeking missile. The warhead detonates harmlessly in the empty air, shaking the cockpit with the shockwave. The American pilot reverses his turn. He lines up the shot. He pulls the trigger. The 20mm cannon roars, vibrating the entire airframe. Heavy tungsten shells rip through the enemy's fuselage. The left wing shears off cleanly. The enemy jet spins violently out of control and disintegrates into a cloud of fire and shredded aluminum. Chaos engulfs the airspace. Missiles streak across the sky like angry hornets. A heavy enemy bomber pushes through the dogfight, aiming its payload at the carrier below. A defending jet intercepts. The pilot fires a long-range missile. The weapon slams into the bomber's starboard engine intake. The explosion rips the heavy aircraft apart from the inside out. Burning wreckage tumbles 5,000 feet down, trailing black smoke. Inside the carrier's control tower, the air boss slams his fist on the console. He yells into the radio, ordering the 2nd Squadron to vector east and flank the incoming wave. He demands the refueling tankers clear the combat zone immediately. Debris rains down on the ocean. A parachute opens in the distance, a small white circle against the gray sky. A burning fuselage crashes into the sea just 50 yards off the carrier's bow, spraying a massive column of salt water onto the flight deck. The deck crew ducks as metal fragments skitter across the runway. The sky is full of twisted smoke trails. The first wave falls, but the radar sweeps again. More red dots appear. 700 hours, the engagement zone. The rising sun illuminates a gray churning seascape littered with oil slicks and floating debris. Visibility improves as the wind shears the heavy smoke from the earlier missile exchange. The two fleets are no longer dots on a radar screen. They are visual silhouettes on the horizon. The ocean swells are large, tossing the warships like toys. On the deck of the lead cruiser, empty brass shell casings roll back and forth with the rhythm of the waves. The air vibrates with the low-frequency hum of massive diesel engines pushing to flank speed. The tactical officer screams a bearing. The captain points to the starboard bow. The main battery guns roar. Orange flame erupts from the barrels. The ship shudders violently from the recoil. Seconds later, water geysers erupt around the enemy destroyer formation 3 miles away. The targeting computer adjusts. The guns fire again. This time, the shells find the mark. The enemy destroyer takes a high-explosive round directly to the bridge. The impact pulverizes the glass and steel command center. A fireball expands outward, blowing the communication arrays into the sea. The ship veers wildly to the left, its rudder jammed, cutting across the path of its own fleet. Retaliation is instant. The enemy fleet unleashes a barrage of deck gun fire. A shell screams over the water and hammers into the American cruiser's hull just above the waterline. The steel armor tears open like paper. The explosion shreds the interior bulkhead, hurling shrapnel through the galley. Sailors are thrown against the walls by the concussive force. Pipes burst, spraying superheated steam into the corridor. A smaller frigate rushes the line, attempting a torpedo run. The cruiser's defensive autocannons swivel. The rotary barrels spin. A buzzsaw sound tears the air. A stream of tungsten tracers connects with the frigate. The rounds chew through the aluminum superstructure. The frigate's bridge disintegrates. The fuel tanks ignite. The ship turns into a floating torch, momentum carrying the burning wreck forward until the bow plunges beneath the waves. On the American cruiser, the damage control officer yells orders over the chaotic intercom. He sends teams to shore up the flooding in the forward compartments. The ship lists 5 degrees to port. Water washes over the lower deck rails. The captain grips the railing. He orders a hard turn to starboard to unmask the rear missile batteries. The massive vessel leans into the turn, engines screaming under the strain. The ocean around them is a kill box of crisscrossing tracers and falling shells. Wait 15 hours, 400 feet below the surface. The ocean is black and crushing. The pressure presses against the steel hull of the American attack submarine with a force of thousands of tons. Inside the Combat Information Center, the lights are dimmed to a deep red. The air is cold and smells of recycled ozone and static. Crew members sit motionless at their consoles, staring at waterfall displays. Silence is the only defense. Above them, the distant thud of artillery shells hitting the water echoes like thunder rolling through a valley. The sonar chief presses the headphones tight against his skull. He freezes, he raises a hand. The room goes deadly still. He hears a transient noise, a faint mechanical whine cutting through the background static of the ocean. It is the sound of a pump engaging. An enemy submarine is hiding in the thermal layer, stalking the carrier group above. The captain points to the weapons officer. He whispers the command. Tube 1, shoot. Compressed air slams into the torpedo tube. The heavy weapon ejects into the dark water. The propeller spins up instantly with a high-pitched whine. The guidance wire unspools from the hull. The torpedo accelerates to 50 knots, tearing a path of cavitation bubbles through the deep. The enemy submarine detects the launch. Its propeller thrashes the water as it attempts a desperate evasive turn. It dives steep, releasing a cloud of chemical noisemakers. The decoys bubble and fizz. creating a wall of sound to confuse the hunter. The American torpedo ignores the decoys. Its active sonar pings rapidly, ping, 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 locking onto the solid steel mass of the enemy hull. The weapon strikes the enemy sub just behind the conning tower. The warhead detonates. The explosion is not a fireball, but a massive shockwave of displaced water. The blast cracks the enemy's pressure hull wide open. The ocean rushes in. The water jet enters the enemy sub at supersonic speed, slicing through steel pipes and bulkheads like a laser. The vessel loses buoyancy instantly. The stern drops. The submarine tilts vertically, sliding backward into the abyss. Deep structural beams scream as they buckle. As the wreck passes crush depth, the hull implodes. The sound is a singular, violent crunch that reverberates through the water for miles. On the American sub, the crew grips their consoles as the shockwave washes over them, shaking the deck plates beneath their feet. The captain looks at the sonar screen. The contact signal fades to nothing. He orders the helm to reload and run silent. 0945 hours, coastal approach, strategic island fortification. The massive steel stern gate of the amphibious assault ship slowly lowers into the churning ocean. Inside the flooded well deck, massive diesel engines roar to life, filling the cavernous steel belly with blue exhaust smoke. Giant turbines spin up to a deafening whine. The lead hovercraft lifts off the deck on a cushion of high-pressure air. It slides out into the harsh daylight, accelerating instantly. Salt spray flies 50 feet into the air, coating the windshields in a thick white film. Behind it, a wave of amphibious armored vehicles churns through the heavy surf. Inside the lead transport, 30 Marines pack tight, knees locking against knees. The vehicle lurches violently as it hits a sandbar. Seawater splashes over the top hatch. The gunnery sergeant screams, 30 seconds, ramps down, guns up! He slams a fresh magazine into his assault rifle. On the island, the tree line flashes. Orange sparks twinkle in the dense jungle canopy. White geysers of water erupt around the approaching fleet. A heavy artillery shell slams into the sea just 10 yards from the lead hovercraft. The massive shockwave lifts the vessel sideways. It crashes back down, skidding wildly across the wave tops, its skirt shredding on jagged reef rock. The ramp of the lead armored vehicle drops before it hits dry sand. The tracks grind into the wet seabed. Marines pour out into waist-deep water, rifles raised high. The air snaps. Heavy machine gun rounds tear the surface of the water into white froth. A Marine takes a round to the shoulder and falls backward into the surf. The water instantly turns red. Another soldier grabs his drag handle and hauls him toward the shore. A rocket streaks from a hidden concrete bunker on the dune. It hits a landing craft directly on the external fuel tank. The explosion is blinding. A fireball rolls outward, engulfing the rear of the vessel. Burning fuel sprays across the beach. The aluminum hull rips open like a tin can. Thick black smoke rolls over the sand, choking the vision of the landing force. The gunnery sergeant tackles a private, hurling him behind a concrete anti-tank obstacle. Debris rains down on their helmets. The sergeant points to the bunker. He yells into the radio, demanding immediate mortar suppression. He raises his grenade launcher. The round arcs over the beach and detonates against the bunker slit, silencing the enemy gun for 3 seconds. It is enough. The squad surges forward, boots sinking into the loose sand, sprinting for the cover of the seawall. 1100 hours, the dune line, overlooking the landing beach. The tropical sun beats down on the white sand, creating waves of shimmering heat. The air is thick with the smell of cordite and burning vegetation. A squad of Marines lies flat against the base of a steep dune, their chests heaving. Above them, coils of razor wire gleam in the sunlight, blocking the path to the ridge. Every time a helmet rises an inch, a burst of machine gun fire chews up the sand in front of them, spraying grit into their eyes. The squad leader grabs the shoulder of the combat engineer. He points to the wire. The engineer nods. He crawls forward on his elbows, dragging a long plastic-encased explosive charge. Bullets snap inches above his head. He shoves the charge under the steel coils. He pulls the igniter pin and rolls violently to the left. Fire in the hole! The charge detonates. A blast of black smoke and sand shoots upward. The razor wire snaps and twists, clearing a narrow path. The squad leader screams, "Go, go!" The Marines surge up the slope. Their boots slip in the loose sand. The enemy machine gun in the concrete bunker swivels toward the breach. The first Marine through the gap takes a round to the chest plate. The ceramic armor shatters, knocking the wind out of him. He falls but scrambles back to his feet, adrenaline masking the bruise. The point man reaches the blind side of the bunker wall. He pulls the pin on a fragmentation grenade. He holds the spoon for 2 seconds, He lobs it through the firing slit. A dull thump shakes the concrete. Smoke billows out of the opening. The Marines stack up on the heavy steel door. The breacher fires a shotgun round into the hinges. The door hangs loose. The point man kicks it open. They flood the room. The interior is dark and smells of sulfur. An enemy soldier stumbles out of the smoke, raising a pistol. The point man fires 2 rounds. The soldier collapses against the wall. Another enemy lunges from the corner with a knife. A Marine swings his rifle stock, smashing the attacker's jaw. The enemy falls. The squad clears the corners. Room clear! Outside, the machine gun fire stops. The squad leader steps over the debris and looks out the firing slit. The beach below is a graveyard of burning vehicles. But the second wave of landing craft is hitting the shore without resistance. 1300 hours. Supply route Alpha, 5 miles inland. The midday sun glares off the dusty armor of the armored column. A line of 20 main battle tanks and troop carriers rumbles along the narrow dirt road, kicking up a thick brown cloud that hangs in the stagnant air. The ground shakes rhythmically with the movement of 80 tons of steel per vehicle. Commanders stand in open hatches, scanning the dense green hills on either side. The radio is quiet, save for routine position checks. Then a sound rises above the diesel engines. It is not the roar of a jet, but a high-pitched collective buzz, like a million angry wasps. The lead commander looks up. The blue sky is speckled with hundreds of small black crosses. They fold their wings in unison. The drone swarm dives. The air defense vehicle at the rear spins its radar. Its quad cannons fire a stream of tracers into the sky. 3 drones disintegrate in puffs of plastic and wire. 10 more take their place. The first suicide drone slams into the top armor of the lead battle tank. The shaped charge detonates. A jet of molten copper burns straight through the commander's hatch. The commander is vaporized instantly. The ammunition inside the turret ignites. The tank shudders violently. A massive column of fire shoots out of the hatch like a blowtorch. The pressure builds in milliseconds. The 10-ton turret blasts 50 feet into the air, flipping end over end before crushing the hood of the Jeep behind it. Panic seizes the convoy. Drivers slam on brakes. Tracks lock up, sliding in the dirt. The swarm strikes the center of the line. Drones impact engines, sensors, and exposed crew members. A troop carrier takes a hit to the rear ramp. The door blows inward. Soldiers stumble out, their uniforms smoking, coughing up black soot. The tank platoon sergeant screams into the radio, "Deploy smoke, jammers on, now!" Launchers on the surviving tank turrets fire canisters. Thick white phosphorus smoke billows out, creating an artificial fog to blind the drone sensors. An electronic warfare vehicle activates its high-powered jammer. The invisible microwave pulse blasts the sky. Dozens of drones lose connection. They wobble, flip, and crash blindly into the trees and the road, exploding harmlessly in the dirt. But the damage is done. The lead tank is a burning roadblock. The rear vehicle is a twisted wreck. The column is trapped. Soldiers press themselves into the mud beneath the vehicles, waiting for the smoke to clear, listening to the crackle of burning ammunition. 1530 hours, Sector 4, Industrial Port City. The city is a gray skeleton of concrete and rebar. Thick dust hangs in the air, coating the soldiers' uniforms until they look like statues. Sunlight cuts through shattered windows in sharp, blinding beams, illuminating floating particles of drywall. Inside the ruins of a 3-story office complex, the silence is heavy and claustrophobic. Broken glass crunches loudly under heavy combat boots. A squad leader signals with a closed fist. The patrol freezes. The air smells of wet plaster, rotting garbage, and old blood. A tripwire glints faintly across the doorway ahead. The point man freezes mid-step. He traces the thin wire to a claymore mine taped to the doorframe. He carefully snips the line. He nods forward. Movement flashes on the landing above. A shadow shifts. Contact front! The ceiling explodes. Enemy soldiers fire through the floorboards from the level above. Bullets punch through the drywall, filling the hallway with a choking cloud of white dust. Plaster chunks rain down on the squad's helmets. The soldiers dive into the adjacent rooms, scrambling over overturned desks. The machine gunner slams his weapon onto a filing cabinet. He angles the barrel upward. He squeezes the trigger. The belt feeds rapidly. High-caliber rounds chew through the ceiling, ripping apart the floor above. Wood splinters and concrete fragments fall in a torrent. Screams echo from the second floor as the rounds find flesh. The squad leader racks his shotgun. Moving! He sprints for the stairwell. An enemy soldier leans over the railing, rifle raised. The squad leader fires from the hip. The heavy slug hits the enemy in the center of the chest. The impact lifts him off his feet and hurls him backward into the darkness. Across the street, a sniper lies prone on a rusted water tower. He watches the building through his high-power scope. He spots an enemy RPG team setting up in a window, aiming at the squad's position. He exhales. He fires. The heavy bullet crosses the street in a fraction of a second. It strikes the RPG gunner in the helmet. The man collapses instantly. The loaded rocket launcher falls from his grip, tumbling out the window and clattering uselessly onto the pavement below. Back inside, the squad stacks on the final office door. The breacher slaps a strip charge on the lock. He detonates. The blast blows the door off its hinges. The point man tosses a flashbang. A blinding white flash fills the room. The squad rushes in, rifles snapping left and right. Short, controlled bursts silence the dazed occupants. The squad leader moves to the window, staying below the sill. He looks out at the sprawling shipping container yard ahead. It is a maze of steel boxes. Smoke rises from the center. 1,700 hours. Deep in the northern mountain range, 40 miles behind enemy lines. The sun dips below the jagged peaks, casting long, bruised purple shadows across the valley floor. The air cools rapidly, carrying the scent of pine resin and damp earth. A special operations team moves through the dense undergrowth. They make no sound. Their camouflage blends perfectly with the foliage. They are ghosts. In the clearing ahead, 3 massive mobile missile launchers sit parked under camouflage netting. The vehicles are dormant monsters, their hydraulic legs digging into the soil. The team leader raises a gloved hand. The column halts. He signals the demolition specialists. 2 operators slip forward, knives drawn. They approach the drowsy sentries guarding the perimeter. Thwip! Thwip! 2 bodies hit the soft ground. The path is clear. The operators sprint to the missile launchers. They slap magnetic explosive charges onto the fuel tanks and hydraulic lift systems. They peel back the adhesive timers. They retreat to the tree line. Execute. The clearing erupts. The charges detonate in unison. The fuel tanks ignite. A massive fireball rolls upward, scorching the canopy. The heavy steel launch tubes groan and twist in the heat. 1 missile cooker offs, the solid rocket motor igniting while still clamped down. It screams like a banshee, thrashing violently against its restraints before exploding, scattering burning debris for hundreds of yards. But the noise draws attention. From the logging road to the east, engines roar. Headlights cut through the twilight. Trees snap and crack as a mechanized quick-reaction force crashes into the clearing. An infantry fighting vehicle, IFV, leads the charge, crushing the burning debris under its tracks. The IFV's turret spins. The 30mm autocannon locates the muzzle flashes in the tree line. Boom, 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 boom. The cannon tears the forest apart. High explosive rounds shatter ancient pine trees, sending razor-sharp wood splinters flying like shrapnel. A massive branch crashes down, pinning an operator by the legs. Dirt and rocks spray into the air, creating a blinding dust cloud. The team leader screams over the radio, "Contact front, heavy armor!" A weapons sergeant shoulders a disposable rocket launcher. He kneels, ignoring the tracers snapping past his ears. He aims, he fires. The rocket streaks across the clearing. It slams into the side of the IFV. The shaped charge punches through the armor. The vehicle stops dead. Smoke pours from the hatches, but 2 more armored trucks skid into the zone. Rear ramps drop. Dozens of enemy infantry swarm out, firing wildly into the woods. The volume of fire is overwhelming. The special operations team is fixed in place, crouching behind disintegrating cover. The team leader grabs the radio handset. He calls for immediate extraction abort. He orders a fighting retreat up the ridge. They pop smoke grenades. Thick red smoke fills the forest floor, masking their movement as they drag their wounded into the darkness. 1900 hours, heavy industrial sector. Night falls over the ruined factory complex. Burning oil tanks cast long, flickering shadows against skeletal warehouses. The air tastes of copper and diesel exhaust. The ground vibrates. It is not an earthquake, but the rhythmic pounding of 60-ton monsters moving over concrete. Puddles of dirty water ripple in time with the mechanical grinding of tank treads. A brick wall to the south crumbles. The long barrel of an American battle tank pushes through the debris. The turret rotates with a low electric hum. The thermal sight scans the gloom, looking for heat signatures in the wreckage. Contact. An enemy battle tank sits hull down behind a pile of concrete slabs. The enemy fires first. The muzzle flash lights up the entire city block. The high-velocity sabot round screams through the air at Mach 5. It strikes the American tank's sloping turret armor. Sparks shower the street like fireworks. The composite armor holds, deflecting the penetrator rod, but the sheer kinetic impact rocks the massive vehicle back on its suspension. Inside the American tank, the gunner screams, "Up!" The commander yells, "Fire!" The main gun recoils. The 120mm armor-piercing round leaves the barrel. It crosses the 300 yards instantly. It hits the enemy tank just below the turret ring. The penetrator rod punches through the steel like a needle through fabric. The physics of the impact liquefies the interior compartment. The enemy tank's ammunition carousel detonates. The turret lifts 10 feet into the air, spinning on a column of violent fire. It crashes back down, crushing the engine deck. More engines roar. A platoon of enemy armor crests the loading dock ramp. They fire a volley. Concrete pillars shatter into dust. A shell hits the track of the second American tank. The steel link snaps. The heavy track unspools like a dead snake. The tank spins violently to the left, immobilized in the open. The American platoon leader screams into the radio, "Flank left! Punch through the warehouse!" Two American tanks rev their turbine engines. They smash through the corrugated metal walls of a shipping facility. They plow through crates and machinery, emerging on the enemy's exposed flank. They fire simultaneously. The rounds strike the thinner side armor of the enemy column. Metal screams as it shears. One enemy tank explodes immediately. Another catches fire, the hatches flying open. Crew members scramble out, their uniforms ablaze, rolling on the asphalt. The industrial park transforms into a graveyard of burning steel. The noise is deafening. Metal screaming against metal, engines roaring, and the thunderclap of the main guns leveling the surrounding infrastructure. 2100 hours, the stratosphere, 50,000 feet above the combat zone. The stealth bomber glides through the thin, freezing air. It is a flat, black shadow against the stars, invisible to the naked eye and a ghost on radar. Inside the pressurized cockpit, the only sound is the rhythmic hiss of the oxygen regulator. The pilot watches the digital map. A red square pulses on the screen, the enemy's central logistics hub. Below, the war is a distant spiderweb of orange fires and flickering tracers, silent from this height. The weapons officer flips a toggle switch. Bay doors open. The belly of the aircraft slides open. The wind turbulence vibrates the airframe slightly. Heavy hydraulic latches release. Weapons away. 12 massive distinct shapes drop from the bay. They fall into the black void, stabilizing fins snapping open. They streak downward, gathering speed, guided by lasers and satellite links toward the supply depot miles below. On the ground, the logistics hub is a hive of frantic activity. Forklifts rush pallets of artillery shells onto waiting convoys. Fuel trucks pump diesel into reserve tanks. A siren begins to wail, a low, mournful sound that rises to a scream. Soldiers look up, freezing. They see nothing but darkness. Then, the air tears open. The first bomb strikes the central fuel depot. It penetrates the reinforced concrete roof before detonating. The explosion is not just fire, it is an erasure. A blinding white sphere expands outward, vaporizing millions of gallons of fuel instantly. The shockwave hits the ground with the force of an earthquake. The concrete tarmac ripples like water. Heavy transport trucks are lifted into the air, flipping end over end, before disintegrating in the heat. The second and third bombs hit the ammunition warehouses. The secondary explosions are cataclysmic. Thousands of artillery shells detonate in a chain reaction. The warehouse walls blow out, hurling cinder blocks and steel beams for half a mile. A crane collapses, its steel spine twisting like a melted candle. The night turns into day. The flash is visible for 30 miles. Anti-aircraft batteries on the perimeter activate too late. They fire streams of green tracers blindly into the sky, hunting for a target that is already gone. High above, the stealth bomber banks hard to the left. The shockwave from the ground reaches them seconds later, a sudden jolt of turbulence. The pilot checks the rear camera. The target area is gone. In its place is a crater of burning chemicals and molten slag. 2100 hours, the stratosphere, 50,000 feet above the combat zone. The stealth bomber glides through the thin, freezing air. It is a flat, black shadow against the stars, invisible to the naked eye and a ghost on radar. Inside the pressurized cockpit, the only sound is the rhythmic hiss of the oxygen regulator. The pilot watches the digital map. A red square pulses on the screen, the enemy's central logistics hub. Below, the war is a distant spiderweb of orange fires and flickering tracers, silent from this height. The weapons officer flips a toggle switch. Bay doors open. The belly of the aircraft slides open. The wind turbulence vibrates the airframe slightly. Heavy hydraulic latches release. Weapons away! 12 massive distinct shapes drop from the bay. They fall into the black void, stabilizing fins snapping open. They streak downward, gathering speed, guided by lasers and satellite links toward the supply depot miles below. On the ground, the logistics hub is a hive of frantic activity. Forklifts rush pallets of artillery shells onto waiting convoys. Fuel trucks pump diesel into reserve tanks. A siren begins to wail, a low, mournful sound that rises to a scream. Soldiers look up, freezing. They see nothing but darkness. Then, the air tears open. The first bomb strikes the central fuel depot. It penetrates the reinforced concrete roof before detonating. The explosion is not just fire, it is an erasure. A blinding white sphere expands outward, vaporizing millions of gallons of fuel instantly. The shockwave hits the ground with the force of an earthquake. The concrete tarmac ripples like water. Heavy transport trucks are lifted into the air, flipping end over end, before disintegrating in the heat. The second and third bombs hit the ammunition warehouses. The secondary explosions are cataclysmic. Thousands of artillery shells detonate in a chain reaction. The warehouse walls blow out, hurling cinder blocks and steel beams for half a mile. A crane collapses, its steel spine twisting like a melted candle. The night turns into day. The flash is visible for 30 miles. Anti-aircraft batteries on the perimeter activate too late. They fire streams of green tracers blindly into the sky, hunting for a target that is already gone. High above, the stealth bomber banks hard to the left. The shockwave from the ground reaches them seconds later, a sudden jolt of turbulence. The pilot checks the rear camera. The target area is gone. In its place is a crater of burning chemicals and molten slag. 2,300 hours, the final perimeter, edge of the ruined port city. The battle has raged for 19 hours. The city is no longer a city. It is a landscape of jagged concrete teeth and fires that refuse to die. The air is thick with ash that falls like gray snow, coating the faces of the survivors. American Marines and Army infantry huddle in shell craters and behind mounds of rubble. They are past exhaustion. Eyes are hollow, staring into the dark. There is no shouting anymore, only the raspy sound of heavy breathing and the metallic clink of empty magazines hitting the ground. A flare pops overhead, drifting down on a parachute. It casts a sickly, wavering red light over the no-man's land between the lines. Shadows stretch and distort across the craters. In the wreckage ahead, metal scrapes against stone. The enemy is not retreating, they are massing for one last push. A whistle blows, a shrill, piercing sound that cuts through the smoke. Shapes rise from the darkness, the enemy charges. They scream, a raw human sound of defiance. They sprint across the open ground, stumbling over bodies, weapons raised. The American line opens fire. Muzzle flashes strobe in the dark, lighting up the desperate faces of the attackers. The lead wave falls, cut down by the remaining machine gun rounds. But the guns click dry, the barrels smoke, the ammunition is gone. The wave crashes into the trench line. The combat becomes primal. A Marine swings an entrenching tool, striking an attacker in the collarbone with a sickening crunch. A soldier tackles an enemy, rolling into the oily mud. They grapple for a knife, grunting with exertion. A helmet is used as a bludgeon, smashing against a rifle stock. There is no strategy now. It is fists, boots, and blades. A grenade rolls into a foxhole. A soldier yells and kicks it out. It detonates in mid-air, spraying hot shrapnel across the clearing. A medic fires his pistol at point-blank range, dropping an enemy who breaches the aid station. The platoon sergeant stands on the parapet. He swings his empty rifle like a club, knocking an attacker backward. He draws his combat knife. He engages the next shadow. They fall together, wrestling in the dirt. Then, the momentum breaks. The sheer physical exhaustion overtakes the violence. The attackers waver. The few standing enemy soldiers stumble back, dragging their wounded into the shadows of the ruins. The fighting stops. The silence that follows is heavier than the explosions. Soldiers slump against the dirt walls, chests heaving. A medic crawls between them, checking pulses. He stops at a body. He shakes his head. The horizon begins to lighten with the faint gray hint of dawn, slowly illuminating the carnage. The ground is held, but the cost is laid out in the mud for all to see.